Welcome to Sasquatch Quest BC YouTube channel. Now, the story I'm about to tell you, I never imagined that I would be telling. I have always believed in Sasquatch, only from older siblings that had an encounter when we were all younger in northern BC. But this story is a little different. My kids and I had a personal, very scary experience on a weekend camping trip at a local lake. And needless to say, it was the most scariest night of our lives. And so my son has written the story out so that I could tell it in detail. However, the night is kind of etched in my mind anyway. But part of the experience I was not present for. And so I will narrate it, that experience, from what my son wrote. And we were really excited to make this YouTube channel to tell our story. So come along, have a seat by the fire with us, and let me tell you. Now, our experience took place on the May long weekend, 2019, on the Sunday evening. But to go back, I decided it was a spontaneous camping trip that I wanted to take. I had just renovated a tent trailer, and I was super excited to bring it up with my car and set it up and have this lovely camping experience. So the four of us decided to go. My daughter, Katie, and her best friend, Denitsa, and my son, Kyle. And we went up to our longtime favorite camp spot, which is a local lake. I've been up there since I was 16 years old, from when my kids were small, and particularly this weekend, they're all adults now. But to just give a bit of history on this place, I have never experienced a wild animal, not even a bear. I don't think I've ever seen a deer up there. I've never been afraid of this place. I've gone up there in the middle of winter. We've gone up there Halloween nights, autumn nights. We've sat on the lake shore looking at the moon. We pretty much love this place. Never, ever, ever thought that we would have an experience that would scare us at this place. So, in continuing, the Friday afternoon, we set up there, and we were having some troubles with the door of the tent trailer, and everyone was really grumpy, and everyone tried to fix it. And so the camping trip started off just a little bit stressful. However, we got that sorted out, and then we had this beautiful campfire. We sat on the dock at the water at sunset. We were playing my guitar and singing. It was just a really lovely Friday evening. The next day, my daughter had to work really early, so I drove her into town, came back, and Kyle and Denitsa and I just kind of did what you do when you're camping. We went for a walk, we went swimming, we sat around the campground, really enjoying our tent trailer. And until it came time to go get Katie from work, and she came back, we had dinner. And, the plan was that at sunset, we were going to go for a walk to the first picnic area as you walk south of the parking lot. So the picnic spot is about half a kilometer, maybe a kilometer or so, down this trail. And so we all started getting ready. I put all our phones in the car, and for some reason locked the car. I brought my keys with me. Katie was the only one that had her phone, and it had a flashlight. we did not think about needing a flashlight because it was still kind of dusk, and keeping in mind that we were not afraid of this place. So with my keys in hand, and I think we had some cider, we walked down the trail. Well, Katie and Denitsa started acting like they were scared. And I remember they bumped, I bumped into them because they stopped abruptly. And I said to them, "Why are you guys acting like you're scared?" And they didn't quite know why, because we weren't afraid of this place. So anyway, we kind of laughed it off and we kept going. We finally got to the picnic spot. Now, at the picnic spot, you can sit, there's a bench or a picnic table. And when you sit down, you look straight out up towards the mountains and the lake. And you can see a footbridge that comes around a bluff on one side of the lake. And so that's what our view was. So we sat, we were talking and laughing, and I remember hearing the frogs were croaking, and I was singing a Simon and Garfunkel song, and I was changing the lyrics, and we were laughing. And when out of the blue, very abruptly, broke up our laughter when a rock, what sounded like a rock, fell into the water with a big splash. Now, I did not see the rock, but Kyle saw the rock, and he said it was about 20 feet from the shore, closer to the footbridge that we were looking at. Now, you can see if people walk across this bridge. And at dusk, we didn't see anything or anybody or hear anybody walk across the bridge. So within seconds, we all went into fight or flight. I got up and I started running. And I didn't make it very far because, number one, I don't run. And number two, my brain was like, you don't run from things like this. You don't run from a bear. That's what I was taught. So I called up to Katie and Denitsa, who had already passed us on the bridge. And Kyle had come alongside me because he saw that I could not walk any faster. So he clutched my arm and he said, "Mammy, don't look back." So we kept going, but we slowed down. And all the while my mind is going, what is going on? So I kind of joked, which I would normally do, and I said, "That wasn't very nice." I yelled back to, I don't know what I was yelling at. And we all just kept going. We didn't stop, we didn't turn around. And we were trying to make sense. So when we came out of the parking lot, we all said, "What the heck was that?" And it was Kyle who thought it was the Sasquatch at first. So back at the campground, I had realized that I had left my keys. I had gotten up so fast that I had forgotten my keys on the bench that I was sitting on. So the kids all freaked out and said they were not going back. So I said, "Well, let's go up to the caretaker. Maybe if we tell him, he'll take us back and I can get my keys." Because by this time it was dark. And so I was trying to, I couldn't walk very far. And of course I didn't have my keys to get in the car. So I said, "Katie and Denise, go up to the caretaker." Well, they didn't want to go. So among the three of them, they decided that with Kyle's lantern and with Katie's bear horn that she has no idea why she brought along, because we've never even experienced a bear. It was like hindsight was 2020. So they decided the three of them would go back together. So very reluctantly, I watched as they huddled together and walked down towards the trail, back to retrieve my keys. And I sat by the fire. Now, the night before the campground was full. There was lots of people that were camping around us. And this night, there was nobody. there was nobody close enough to us. So I was sitting by the campfire in the dark, and it suddenly occurred to me that I was alone and I was bait. I think I was in a bit of shock. One from the fright, and then from the pain of running, and then my ankles being in a lot of pain. So I decided I was going to go back into the tent trailer. And while I was there, I was praying that, Lord, protect my kids and make sure, like, I hope everything's going to be okay, and they'll just go get my keys and come right back. And so this is where I am. I am in the tent trailer while my kids are in the forest getting my keys. So the next part of the story takes place in the forest with my kids going back to retrieve my keys. But as I said, I was in the tent trailer praying, and, for what seemed like a lifetime, they were gone. And I was just praying that they would just be protected and go down, get my keys, and come straight back without anything happening. Well, out of the blue, I hear a scream coming from Kyle that was so deep, it must have came from the depths of his lungs. And I literally leapt to my feet and out the tent trailer door into the darkness. And I could hear them screaming. And all I could think of, as a mom listening to that from the forest, coming from the forest, knowing that your kids are there, I thought something was attacking them. I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no phone. I had no keys, and I could not walk, and I could not help them. And so with that running through my body and my mind, this is what was going on in the forest. So Kyle, Katie, and Denitsa all walked into the forest. Kyle in front with his propane lantern, Katie and Denitsa behind him, armed with a bear horn, and Katie's cell phone, just in case. So they all walked into the forest. They told me that they were making noises and they just wanted to go get the keys and come back. And they finally got to the bench where they saw my keys. They were still there. And that was a huge relief. And they turned back to return to the campground. However, across the footbridge, the forest gets a little darker in that part of the forest, and there's a waterfall, and there's also the lake shores quite close in there, and it's very swampy. And the trail takes a turn around a large cedar tree. Well, they said they had just rounded that cedar tree when, out of the blue, the same eerie sound of a rock hitting water directly behind them, directly behind Katie in particular. And it freaked them out. They all screamed, and Katie leapt forward, of course, trying to get in front of Kyle and Denitsa. She grabbed Kyle's arm, and Kyle took off running, and she lost her balance and fell on the path, also pushing Denitsa out of the way over the side of the path into blackberry bushes. Everyone was scrambling. Everyone was screaming. Katie said she lost her glasses when she fell, and she picked up her glasses and turned around in the darkness. She couldn't see anything. She just was so scared. She said her life passed before her eyes, because she felt at the moment that it happened, she felt like there was something, like her hair stood on end, and like something was she was going to say that something was watching them. So she blew the bear horn. Back at the tent trailer, I heard the bear horn, and I thought, oh my God, they're all screaming. So back in the forest, She blew the bear horn, got up, and they all ran as fast as they could, screaming, not knowing what it was, who it was, what was happening. And they all came running out of the trail, and I could see their light from where I was. I could hear their screams so loud. And they finally made it back to the tent trailer where I was waiting. Of course, they were all mad at me for leaving my keys the first time, but Katie was hyperventilating. She was so scared. She didn't know what was happening. Denitza couldn't say a word. And Kyle just kept saying, Kyle said to me, Mammy, you're not going to believe it. There is something through another rock, and it's coming our way. Well, I freaked out. And I got in my car, because now I had my keys, and I drove to the caretaker. And I told the caretaker what had happened. Well, she understood what I was trying to say. And she said to me, well, you know that what makes me think. I said, yes, I think so. And she said, well, my husband does say that there are big toads. I said, well, if a toad can leap itself off the side of a cliff into the water about 20 feet, then there must be a giant toad out there. You know, so we had a bit of a chuckle, but, you know, I was serious. I said, well, I'm going to pack up my stuff, but if you see a white car flying out of here, you'll know why. So I go back to the tent trailer where Katie is still hysterically crying. So afraid. Kyle, they started telling me their story. Kyle said that in the moment of the rock being thrown again, his scream almost deafened him. He could hear that his scream sounded different in his head, and he almost went deaf. Katie felt the same way. However, she felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up on end, and she saw a flash at the corner of her eye. And poor Denitza had this huge gouge up her leg. You know, so they're all in the tent trailer screaming and crying. I'm trying to tell Katie to calm down. So I just said, you know what? Let's all pack up the stuff, put it in the back of the car. I don't want to try and get the tent trailer on the back of the car right now. We'll try and get some sleep, and then in the morning we'll leave. So while I'm outside the tent trailer door, though, across the lake, I could hear what sounded like almost like a dog, like a bark. And I said it to them, and Denitza heard it. But Katie was too upset to talk. So I mental noted that anyway. So Katie's crying. We're all getting into our beds. You know, I'm worried about the tent trailer because some of the Velcro wasn't working on the tent trailer. Now I'm just thinking that something's going to reach in and grab my leg. So pretty much slept with my eyes open that night. And Denitza was beside me, and I just said to her, you know, you haven't said much. Are you okay? And she just burst out crying. There was so much fear that we just lay in silence, really, for quite a long time. And then out of the blue, you know, we hear the sound of, it almost sounded like a flock of loons. It was like loud and echoey, and we all just froze. Like, it was out of the silence, something disturbed. Loons, now I've only ever seen one or two loons on that lake. So to hear what sounded like a flock of loons, it was unnatural. And I can't even reenact it, but we just slept with our eyes open. It was the most scariest night of our entire lives. And the next morning, we got up, and everything was packed already. And I said, let's go. Well, Katie had woken up, and in her curiosity was so wanted to go and listen or see if there was anything about. Kyle said he lay for a long time, and he could hear what sounded like clapping in the distance. So it was really unusual. So before we left, I said, well, why don't you guys walk down the trail and see if you can go back and find out where you fell and see if you can find the rock, right? Well, they did. They went back and they saw where they fell. They found the rock. Definitely had come from up the slope that I had mentioned, around that dark corner of the forest. There was a hole in the ground where the rock came from. There was a spot on the hill that was flattened out. And they tossed the rock to see if what it would sound like if it fell, and it was pretty much the same sound. It was the most interesting thing. Another interesting thing was they saw 3 sticks that were all lined up together. So this story, this experience really, really shook us up, and made us quite fearful to be in this place at nighttime in particular. But it sparked such a curiosity in us that we had to go back. And we went back several times over that summer, just to find out what was in the forest with us that night. What was it that threw the rock? What was it that made the sound that we heard? I definitely heard barking. So, or what sounded like barking anyway. So this is our experience. This is what happened. Everything is truthful. There's no reason for us to make up this story. My daughter ended up having slight post-traumatic stress disorder over it. So did, actually all of us did, really, in our own way. But what has come from it was a year, and even now, currently, it's been 3 years. A year of interacting with something that was in the forest. We have photos, we have recordings, we have a lot of things that we would like to share on this channel. So if you're interested, please subscribe, and like, and I hope you enjoyed our scary experience. And thank you for listening.